A man builds his career on the same handful of people for 30 years. A caddy who reads every green, a brother who steps in when it matters most, and then, one at a time, they start disappearing from his bag. Not fired, not fighting in public, just quietly gone, at the exact moments you'd expect a career to need them most. That's the pattern sitting underneath Phil Mickelson's 2026 season, and once you see it, it's hard to unsee. You've probably heard the official explanation for why Phil hasn't played a single major this year: a family health matter. That phrase has been repeated by his camp, almost word for word, every time he's pulled out of a tournament in 2026. But strip away the press release language and look at who's actually been standing next to Phil over the last decade, and a different story starts to take shape. One where the people closest to him keep leaving right before the moments that matter most, and Phil never seems to see it coming until it's already happened. Before I get into how this played out, I want to know, do you think Phil Mickelson still has the people around him to mount a real comeback? Or has that window already closed? Let me know in the comments, and if you're here for the stories behind the press releases, hit subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel does. To see the pattern, you have to go back to where it started: Bones Mackay. For 25 years, Bones was the one constant in Phil's career, on the bag for every major win, standing beside him through 2 decades of near misses and breakthroughs. Then in 2017, with no warning to the golf world, Bones quietly stepped away. No fight, no blow-up, just a short statement about it being time for a change. To the outside world, it looked like an isolated moment, one long partnership running its course, the way these things sometimes do. Except it wasn't isolated. It was the first data point in a pattern that would take years to fully reveal itself. Bones didn't disappear from golf. He resurfaced almost immediately at NBC, calling tournaments from the broadcast tower instead of walking the fairway. Then in 2021, he came back to caddying entirely, not for Phil, but for Justin Thomas. Within a year, he was back in a winner's circle, helping Thomas capture the 2022 PGA Championship. And here's the detail that matters. After that win, Thomas signed the 18th hole flag and made sure Bones' name had room on it too. The same tradition, the same gesture, and a completely different outcome than the one Bones got walking away from Phil. One partnership ended with him fading into the background. The next one ended with his name literally on the trophy moment. That's one departure. On its own, it's a footnote. But watch what happened next, because this is where the pattern stops looking like a coincidence and starts looking like a habit. In 2021, the same year Bones left the broadcast booth to caddy for someone else, Phil pulled off one of the most remarkable feats in golf history. At 50 years old, he won the PGA Championship, becoming the oldest major champion ever, breaking a record that had stood since 1968. The man carrying his bag that week wasn't a hired professional. It was his own brother, Tim Mickelson, who'd stepped in years earlier and helped architect the entire late career comeback. For a moment, it looked like Phil had simply replaced one irreplaceable person with another, and the operation kept running exactly like before. Then, in 2024, Tim stepped away too. The explanation given was almost identical in spirit to the one Bones offered 7 years earlier: vague, brief, framed as a personal decision rather than any kind of falling out. Family reasons was as far as it went publicly. A new caddy, John Yarbrough, took over the bag. And just like that, the second irreplaceable person in Phil's career, in less than a decade, was gone. So by the start of 2026, Phil Mickelson had already lived through 2 versions of the same story. The longtime caddy who built 5 majors with him, gone. The brother who engineered his greatest comeback, gone. 2 different people, 2 different eras, one identical shape, each of them closest to Phil during his biggest wins, each of them exiting quietly a few years later, each departure explained in the fewest possible words. And then 2026 happened, and the cost of that pattern became impossible to ignore. On February 1st, Phil posted that he'd be missing LIV Golf's opening events, citing a family health matter involving him and his wife Amy. That same phrase would go on to explain nearly every absence for the rest of the year. He missed the Masters in April. He withdrew from the PGA Championship at Aronimink. He wasn't in the field at the US Open, where his 5-year exemption from that 2021 win had simply run out, and no special invitation came to fill the gap. In late June, his camp confirmed he was pulling out of the Open Championship too. His only competitive appearance all year came in March at a live event in South Africa, where he finished tied for 48th. Sit with that for a second. 0 majors played, for the first time in a career that spans over 3 decades and 6 major championships. Not a slow year, a full stop. And it's happening in the exact year that both the caddy who carried 5 of his majors and the brother who engineered his 6th are nowhere near him. Here's the question I keep coming back to, and I want your read on it. Golf, more than almost any sport, runs on a tiny circle of trust. The caddy who knows your swing better than you do, the family member who can say the hard thing nobody else will. Phil built 2 versions of that circle over 30 years and lost both of them within a decade of each other. Is it a coincidence that his least productive stretch as a professional is unfolding in the one era of his career where neither of those people is standing next to him? Or is that exactly the point, that careers like his don't collapse from one bad year, they collapse when the people holding them up quietly stop showing up? Tell me what you think in the comments. I'll be reading. And if you want more of these pattern-based breakdowns instead of the press release version, subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. Here's the number that makes the pattern impossible to explain away. 0. 0 majors played in 2026, from a 6-time major champion for the first time in his entire professional career. That's not one bad season. That's what it looks like when a career that ran on 2 irreplaceable people finally has to run without either of them. And look at how differently things turned out for the people who left versus the man they left behind. Bones Mackay walked away from Phil with barely a word said publicly, and 4 years later he was standing in a winner's circle with a different player, his name signed on the flag right alongside the champions. Tim Mickelson helped build the greatest comeback of Phil's career, and then, once it was done, stepped back into a private life on his own terms. Both of them left on their own timeline, and both of them walked into something that looked like peace. Phil, meanwhile, enters the back half of his 50s with a new caddy, an empty major schedule, and a 2-word explanation that's had to stretch across an entire season. This is bigger than one golfer's bad year, though. It's a look at how fragile even the most decorated careers are once you strip away the 2 or 3 people actually holding them together. Fans see the trophies and the record-breaking wins and assume that kind of success is self-sustaining. It isn't. It's built on a small number of relationships that have to keep holding, tournament after tournament, year after year. When Bones left, Phil had Tim to lean on. When Tim left too, there was no third person waiting in the wings the way there had been before, just a new hire, and a season with nothing in the major columns to show for it. So here's where it lands. 2 of the closest people in Phil Mickelson's professional life left within 7 years of each other, each exit quiet, each one explained in the fewest words possible. Both of them found their own version of a happy ending somewhere else. And the man they left behind just finished the first season of his career with 0 majors played, 1 competitive start, and the same unchanging explanation offered every single time. Do you think Phil finds his way back once this family matter resolves? Or is this simply what it looks like when a career finally runs out of the people who used to hold it up? Let me know where you land, and tell me how long you've been watching his career, because I'm curious how far back this one goes for the people in the comments. If you want more stories built from the timeline instead of the talking points, hit subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is for.